SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්. SLT Mobitel Home Broadband සමගින් non-stop ගමනකට data බෝවන්.
දසනකාන්තී චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Silver lining. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken calls on Sri Lanka to use this opportunity brought on by the crisis.
We see that there is a huge obligation on our part to put the country back on track and get its economy out of the woods that we are going through right now.
Diplomacy. Former Foreign Minister Rohitha Bogollagama says Sri Lanka needs to be diplomatic and mindful about how it handles issues like the controversial Chinese vessel.
This may be a starting point for similar exercises to take place in the future too. Therefore, that is what we have to avoid. Today we need the best management techniques to be employed.
This Thursday, the 4th of August 2022.
වින්දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I'm Andrew Bernard. Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe reiterated Sri Lanka's commitment to the One China policy as well as to the United Nations Charter principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity of nations. He made these remarks during a meeting with the ambassador of China to Sri Lanka, Chi Cheng-hong. Taking to his Twitter account handle, President Ranil Wickremesinghe stressed that countries must refrain from provocations that further escalate global tensions. In the meantime, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has sent a congratulatory message to the Sri Lankan President, stating she is looking forward to continuing the warm friendship between Sri Lanka and the UK during his presidency. Last evening, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II sent a congratulatory message to President Ranil Wickremesinghe on his appointment as the President of Sri Lanka. The message was conveyed to the President by the British High Commission in Colombo. The message says she is looking forward to continuing the warm friendship between Sri Lanka and the UK during the presidency of Wickremesinghe. She also conveyed her good wishes for the future role of the President and the success and happiness to Sri Lanka and its people. Meanwhile, Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Cheng-hong, called on President Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning. During the meeting, President Wickremesinghe reiterated Sri Lanka's firm commitment to the One China policy, as well as to the United Nations Charter of Principles of Sovereignty and Territorial Integrity of Nations. The head of state tweeted that countries must refrain from provocations which further escalate the current global tensions. He also said mutual respect and non-interference in the internal affairs of countries are important foundations for peaceful cooperation and non-confrontation. The former Foreign Minister Rohitha Bogollagama believes that even though granting access to the Chinese vessel Yuan Wang 5 won't have severe impact on the region's geopolitical security, Sri Lanka needs to be mindful about how this move could become a frequent habit for similar activity. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatha on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Bogollagama said that the Indian concerns are fair and that the country needs to employ the best diplomatic management techniques to ensure that the country's allies are not angered and diplomatic relations are protected as the island faces a dire economic condition.
What is your view on this current controversy and the surrounding information that we are privy to?
In fact, basically these things cannot be taken by surprise. These are long drawn plans that are put into execution on bilateral understandings and, say, scheduling. Here is a vessel, if you take a picture of Yuan 5, is one of the latest satellite transmitting plus surveying vessels, where they have very high powered, something similar to the X-ray equipment, which are of high resolutions, that can stretch to a distance of about 1,000 kilometers or beyond, and make proper ground service, or including the area service. So I think the concerns of India is, here is a Chinese vessel with whom they have certain amount of tension, obviously because they are big neighbors. Chinese border on India, on top of the northern part of India, is huge. So bilateral concerns are there for large countries. When a vessel of this nature comes, then of course India reacts in this manner. For that, only diplomacy can play a role. How do we manage these affairs? First, when we had notice of this, we should have shared this information because it's a matter of concern. Obviously, we have to understand. And also, we have to manage with our friends like China. And these are not the first time such vessels are coming to Sri Lanka from other neighboring countries as well. But the sensitivity is purely because this has the type of equipment that can penetrate the Indian territory in terms of both air and sea and land surveys and x-rays to be taken. So they have a genuine concern that they have expressed themselves.
What kind of an analysis do you have of the impact on the region's security?
Of course, geopolitical concerns are of great importance for a country's planning processes for management of diplomacy. But having said that, I don't think we have to get too excited in the manner in which this vessel has sailed into the country, because we would have had previous notice and we have permitted it. Now it's a matter of mitigating the type of misgivings associated. This may not lead, because Sri Lanka being a very innocent party, between two major players in the world, India on one side and equally China on the other hand. So that this may be a starting point for similar exercises to take place in the future too. Therefore, that is what we have to avoid. In the event this type of nature of this type of visits are going to be frequent and it's going to irritate our neighbors, then it's a matter of great concern.
Should we in the first place have allowed such a vessel to enter Sri Lankan waters?
In the event it is becoming too sensitive to the Indian interest and they have concerns of it, then obviously we should have talked with the Chinese, explained to them, particularly because we have to play a game of good management of our foreign relations. What I would say, today we need the best management techniques to be employed in getting what is right for Sri Lanka first.
Can Sri Lanka really avoid a Chinese vessel visiting our port when we've allowed so many Indian vessels, followed by Japanese and US defense-related vessels as well?
China is not our immediate neighbor. India is our neighbor. Whether their vessels come to Sri Lanka or not, we are only about 20 to 30 kilometers away from the Indian shores as a country. So the presence of Indian vessels, whether they are within our territorial waters or inside our harbors or port, is of not very significant. Here is vessels coming from beyond our hemisphere in terms of the territorial waters of Sri Lanka and the Indian Ocean by itself. The Indian vessels coming even on a regular basis is a part and parcel of their waters in terms of beyond our territorial waters is the Indian waters that come into play. So that their vessels are sailing, they may have their submarines going around. So these are little impact in terms of our interest.
Now, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is of the view that Sri Lanka is having an opportunity to create a more inclusive, representative, democratic and responsive government, and he used this crisis to seize that opportunity to make something very positive out of a very difficult situation. He made these remarks during a meeting with Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister of Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri, on the sidelines of the 29th ASEAN Regional Forum ministerial meeting. Foreign Minister also met with Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, where he reaffirmed India's commitment to the economic recovery and well-being of Sri Lanka.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri arrived in Cambodia to take part in 29th ASEAN Regional Forum ministerial meeting. Sri Lanka has been a member of the forum since 2007, and this time the meeting will be held under the theme Addressing Challenges Together. This is the first time the forum is meeting in person since the COVID-19 pandemic. On the sidelines of the forum, Minister Sabri met with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken for bilateral discussions.
Sri Lanka is in a moment of challenge and crisis. The United States has worked hard to step in to support Sri Lanka. In this moment, we provided about $179 million worth of assistance of one kind or another, including loans and direct support since June. But in crisis, there's also opportunity. And I hope, and we hope, and will certainly support Sri Lanka in these efforts. There's an opportunity in this moment to create a more inclusive, representative, democratic, responsive government, and to use this crisis to seize that opportunity to make something very positive out of a very difficult situation would stand Sri Lanka in very, very good stead. We're also very supportive of Sri Lanka and the IMF working out an arrangement that also requires appropriate debt restructuring that has to be done on an equitable basis with all of the creditors doing what's necessary. necessary to support Sri Lanka at this time.
We really appreciate the role played by the US in trying to get a arm bailout as soon as possible and the debt being restructured. We understand the challenges, and in these challenges we also understand a lot of opportunities. So we see that there is a huge obligation on our part to put the country back on track and get its economy out of the woods what we are going through right now, and we look forward to work with the American administration, US administration throughout, and we are very thankful for all the support. And of course we can't forget the USAID have provided a lot of support during these very difficult times. So I hope we continue to have that support and the technical support, particularly in some areas of very difficult reforms that we need to undertake, and we look forward to work with the administration to do that.
Meanwhile, another meeting between Sri Lankan Foreign Minister and Indian Minister of External Affairs Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar was held in Cambodia today. During the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar reaffirmed India's commitment as a dependable friend and reliable partner to the economic recovery and well-being of Sri Lanka. In the meantime, another meeting between the US Secretary of State and the Indian External Affairs Minister was held today, and the Sri Lankan situation was taken into discussion.
We're both strong proponents of ASEAN centrality. We have a shared vision together for a free and open Indo-Pacific that we work on in so many different ways every single day. And of course, we have some immediate challenges that we're both concerned with, to include the situation in Sri Lanka, Burma, and a number of other hotspots.
And we'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Now, the National Transport Commission says normal bus fares will be slashed by 11.14% in line with the recent reduction in prices of auto diesel. Accordingly, the minimum bus fare will be reduced from 38 rupees to 34 rupees. Addressing a special media briefing this afternoon, Director General of National Transport Commission, Commodore Dr. Nalin Miranda, says that the bus fare revision is effective from midnight today. He said that the revised fares should be displayed on buses. He also added that the passengers can lodge complaints about bus conductors charging higher fares or those not issuing tickets by contacting the NTC's 24-hour hotline 1955. Now, the inclement weather conditions that prevailed over the island has affected over 12,000 people and has caused the loss of 4 lives. With this being the case, the Meteorology Department called on the fishing and naval communities to refrain from venturing out to the sea due to the possible swell waves. The prevailing adverse weather conditions across several parts of the island affected 13,739 people, belonging to 3,471 families in 10 districts so far. Inclement weather has also claimed the lives of 4 people. The Department of Meteorology stated that showery and windy conditions are expected to continue further in the southwest quarter of the island due to the active southwest monsoon. It added that heavy rainfalls above 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the Bogollagama province and in the Kandy and Nuwara districts. The department further advised fishermen and the naval community to not venture into the sea areas off the coast extending from Mana to Pothuwil via Puttalam, Colombo, Galle and Hambantota until further notice. Meanwhile, heavy showers in the past days have resulted in floods in the areas of Ratnapura and Nuwara. Further, vehicular movement was disrupted due to landslides in areas such as Hatton and Nuwara. In the meantime, the National Building Research Organisation extended the landslide warning issued yesterday for a further 24 hours.
In level 3, evacuation red notice was issued to Valasmula Division Secretary Division Hamathura District, Yatiyantutan Aranayaka Division Secretary Division Kegol District, Paskoda Division Secretary Division Matra District, Ambagamu Kola and Kotmale Division Secretary Division Nuwara District, Imbulpe, Kalawana, Kahavatta, Kuruvita and Nivitikala Division Secretary Division Ratnamura District, and warning level 2 alert Amba warning was issued to Metadumbara and Gangahila Korle Division Secretary Division Kandy District, Ukwila Division Secretary Division Mathale District, Ahliyagoda, Palmadulla, Ratnapura and Alapata Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District, and warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Nagoda Division Secretary Division Galle District, Udunuwara, Deltota, Pasbaya Korle, Udapalata and Dolua Division Secretary Division Kandy District, Dehiyovitan, Dernika Division Secretary Division Kegol District, Mulatin and Aturlia Division Secretary Division Matra District, Nuwara Division Secretary Division Nuwara District, Balangoda.
No shooting incident was reported inside the Mount Lavinia court premises this afternoon. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Taldova said that an individual from among the crowd opened fire at a suspect who was the witness on the stand and fled the scene. However, no one was injured in the shooting and a search is in progress to apprehend the gunman. The AdaDerana reporter said that the recommencing of court proceedings after lunch today and during the hearing of a case, Chief Magistrate Kosala Senadira, an individual who was within the court premises, pulled out a pistol and fired at a defendant who was in the witness stand. He said that the two defendants were in the witness stand at the time and that none of them were injured in the shooting. The shooter then fired into the air and fled the court premises. The Mount Lavinia police is conducting further investigations into the incident. The Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Wijesekara, called on the general public to take measures to keep their fuel pass safe to prevent any unwarranted use of their QR code to obtain fuel. Meanwhile, during a meeting between the subject minister and fuel distributors, he emphasized that the national fuel pass system is in place. Fuel will only be distributed to refilling stations that have adopted the QR code system.
The purpose of implementation of the National Fuel Pass system, which was to eliminate long queues outside refilling stations and to implement an efficient fuel distribution mechanism, has shown success. The long queues seen outside refilling stations over the past months could be seen no more since the issuance of fuel through the QR code system was implemented. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara, taking to Twitter, requested the general public to ensure that their QR codes be kept in a safe place and not too visible to others to prevent irregularities. The minister went on to say that the feature to delete an existing profile and re-register is now available on the National Fuel Pass application. So far, according to the ministry, a total of 609,379 transcripts of issuing petrol and 66,581 transactions on issuing diesel have been recorded by 6 a.m. this morning through the Fuel Pass QR system. Further, Minister Wijesekara also held discussions with fuel distributors today. During the meeting, the minister emphasized that fuel will only be distributed to fuel stations that are currently utilizing the National Fuel Pass system. The minister added that if there is a major difference between volume of fuel issued to refilling stations and dispensed to the people, the quantity of fuel issued to that refilling stations will be limited from next week onwards. Although a majority of refilling stations have adopted the QR code system, some remain unable to dispense fuel using the QR code due to lack of sufficient fuel reserves. Due to this, some refilling stations were seen with long queues.
So that's all the news we have for you this evening. Have a pleasant night. Good night.